Hi, everybody. This is Kevin Von Erich, and I want you all to listen with me as Zak and Paul on Territory Marks. It's a great show. See you there.
Kevin Von Erich, it is an honor and privilege to have you on our show. This dates back a little bit. I got to go back in the timeline to about a year ago. I have another show called $2 Late Fee with my co-host Dustin, and we came out to Dallas for the Ironclaw premiere. And while I was there, had a chance to meet David Manning and Bill Mercer, had them on the show to talk to
Oh,
them.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
flash forward a little bit later, Paul and I are on your son's show with Ross and Marshall, right?
Yeah.
And talking about meeting you, la 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 la, all that good stuff. Marshall says, "Oh, I've got to get your dad on the show. Got to get your dad on the show." And here we are. Flash forward, it's all happening. I met you a couple weeks ago at the Cla La 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 Christmas event with
Yeah.
Wade
Yeah.
Jennings was performing, and we had a wonderful time. Like you said, it was for the fans, great interaction. But you were busy all day that day.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. But, I want to tell you, your energy was so good. We all liked you. If you want to do more podcasts, count us in. We think we really liked your style, man.
Oh, thanks so much. I mean, look, Paul and I have been doing this
No,
for.
Zach's great. I latch on to Zach's coattails because he's so smooth and he's a smooth operator. He's terrific.
Hey, everybody's got something to bring to the table.
They sure
That's it.
do. I always say that you should surround yourself with people that make you feel good about yourself, right? And you can uplift others.
I
And
agree,
that's
bud. Yeah.
that's what this world's all about is
There
uplifting
you go.
people and doing
Yeah.
something positive.
Yeah, wake up in the morning and don't dread what you've got to do, but enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a gift. Nothing's guaranteed. I think a lot of us know that, yeah, it really is a gift. It's a matter of perspective. And let me just say, as a Texan, this is an absolute honor for me, Kevin. When I wrestled for a brief period, I wore the tassels in honor of Kerry. Just heavily influenced, and this is a real honor for me. I did a tour of Noah with your sons, and we became fast friends over there. And it's just been a real treat for me. I'll even think back to probably back in 2016, 17, somewhere in there. I wrestled two shows in a day, and I had posted out a tweet that I felt like this is the closest I'll feel to being like a Von Erich working twice a day in two different towns.
Yeah.
And you liked it, and I was like, "Oh, he acknowledged it. This is amazing." It totally made my
Oh
day.
man,
Yeah, it was
I'm gonna
great.
like more stuff because I never thought you never think about people seeing it, but yeah, it's great to encourage each other. So if I'd have known that you were, I would have pushed something. I would have favored something for a long time before that.
Oh, no, no, no. I was just honored you acknowledged it at all because it's a rare thing. I think when I was with WWE, I wrestled twice in a day. We did that on house shows maybe once or twice in the 6 years that I was there, 5.5, 6 years that I was there. But you guys were doing that pretty often, weren't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. At first, it was so much fun that we could do shows together, like Dave and Kerry and me, and that was great. And it happened, for maybe 2 months. But after that, it was just the crowds were so big that they would turn it into splitting us up, and we'd run 3 shows a day.
Oh,
And
wow.
Wow.
yeah, and then when one brother is hurt, that means somebody else got to take over for him, and
Right.
so we were interchangeable too. We could wrestle for each other, and the crowd would be fine with it. But
Yeah.
you never know what's going to happen. We got into the arena one night in Abilene, and we were wrestling the Freebirds, and we knew they were drunk because they passed us on the road and they threw beer at us and mooned us. So we knew they were drinking. But man, they got in there and they wrecked that dressing room, and somebody pissed Michael off, and pissed Terry off, and Terry did something. The whole building shook, and they all came running out of that dressing room, and then came the toilet. He threw the toilet out too,
What?
smashed all over the floor, and then they left. They just left, and the building people were pissed off, and so we called Dad. We said, Dad, what are we going to do? We got the Freebirds just left. They were too drunk to wrestle anyway. They're more in a fighting mood. He said, "You should have got him in the ring for the first match then." And I said, "Yeah, sir." And so he said, "Well, what do we do?" He said, "You're going to go out there and wrestle each other." So that's what we did. We wrestled. You know, we all wrestled each other in. It was in Abilene there at the Taylor County Convention Center. It was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun too. We had so much fun. The crowd loved it too.
Oh my goodness. Was it a while before y'all returned to Abilene, or were things made amends in the bathroom with
No,
the
it was actually made it uplifting. The people were happy, and we wound up coming back every month.
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope they fixed the toilet in that time.
No, when the crowd is that big, they don't mind that much.
No. You know, we about a year ago we did a celebration to your family, and we highlighted some of the lesser known moments in the Von Erich's history, and one of which a commercial you did with your brother Kerry for the t-shirts that Paul is wearing says "Taken by Force."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the inspiration for these this shirt here. We love that commercial.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it comes off a little aggressive in today's atmosphere when you're trying to see if, you know, female fans may not it just comes off a little different today, but I still sport it.
Yeah.
And maybe not my best seller, but I've sold it to a few kids, I guess.
No. Well, a guy as handsome as you, Paul, you got to be worried about like date rape.
Oh
you
no.
know?
Come on. No, I never had the Von Erich physique, you know what I mean? Which,
No.
you know, with all respect to Kerry, you know, I think obviously he looked the gladiator, but I always felt you had such a different physique for what was a professional wrestler, especially at the time when it was the land of giants. But you always, in my estimation, had similar to like a swimmer's physique, and I felt that made you more relatable in a way to, you know, you looked very human, but you looked superhuman in a way.
Well,
Where
Paul, you're
yeah,
right. You are right, bud, because I did a lot of swimming, but I wanted to be a complete athlete. You know, I never did bodybuild. I was never a bodybuilder. I
Oh,
wanted to do the bench press and curls. Curls were only things because I needed the strength, and bench press is you use that for everything, and your punches mean so much more. But I ran a lot and I swam. I didn't run, I sprinted. I ran sprints
yeah.
and I swam a lot and I climbed. I climbed a lot. You know, I did a lot of pull motions and upside down too, inverted. And because I wanted a full work, Kerry and I would run on Wednesdays. We'd run 400 meters on the track, and you'd run one 400, and then wait for your heartbeat to go back to normal, and then another 400, and make them all for time. Try to keep them under a minute.
wow.
And it was hard. It was tough, you know. Then
Yeah.
we had on Tuesdays we ran a 600-yard shuttle. We'd lifting too while we doing this, but you got to know at my house everything. I was the big brother, and everything was about getting better every day. My brother, he had Vince Lombardi posters on all the walls, and everything Vince Lombardi said, we've all got it memorized. You know, I mean, winners never quit, quitters never win, and everything. Everything was competition, getting better. And so our workouts, you know, we knew we understood early that the more you damage your body when you work out, the more it responds.
Right.
And so, you know, we'd work out to exhaustion and every muscle part to exhaustion. And then we'd get a little more extreme. We'd want to wake up real early in the morning and well, this was a failed experiment, but we'd want to I told Kerry, I said, Kerry, we got to make it harder on ourselves. We're being too easy on us. I said, let's work out before the sun comes up when we're sleepy. Make ourselves do it.
Oh,
He said,
man.
yeah, Kev said, we'll jump in that ice cold pool. It was wintertime, you know, we'll jump in the swim pool. We'll wake up, treat our body like crap, you know. And so
God.
he came and got me one morning and I hit the run. We took about 20 steps after just waking up. we had to take a knee. We almost killed ourselves. I thought,
Oh
I'm never
my
going to
God.
do that again. Never going to do that. I'm going to let myself wake up
Right.
before I just. But your body really is that way. The more pain you put it through, the more it responds. And it like that's the kind of bodies God gave us.
Right.
Like the more you like when you have a broken bone, it comes back stronger. And our bodies, when you hurt it, it starts healing immediately. What a
Yeah.
wonderful body we have.
Well, you
Yeah.
guys were
Well, I
blessed
think
with some pretty incredible genes because
absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
my dad.
It seemed
Yeah.
like each person had their thing, like Kerry was more into the bodybuilding. Obviously, he did like the heavy track and field. I guess shot putting, absolutely, that I don't know if that's so, but then you had swimming and that gave you your own look and feel and athleticism as well. I guess David would his have been something kind of more football, or I mean,
Yeah.
it's y'all all for being brothers, each still had your very own identity, and I just think that's such a
Yeah.
unique, special thing, especially today when everyone seems to give up willingly their individuality, and I don't
yeah,
understand that. I don't
Me
understand that.
either. Yeah, that's what college was all about, is to hear other voices, other opinions, differing from your own. And you learn from that. But I don't understand this new trend today. Either agree with me or I'll never speak to you again. That's
right.
ridiculous.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, I gotta say, we had Mark Lawrence on the show a couple times. Mark's actually become a really good friend of ours. He's
I
such
love
a
that guy. It'd be
wonderful
great.
guy. He's,
Yeah.
he's one of those guys that he has such a gift for professional wrestling, but he gave his gift to the church, and did that for such a long period. And he's such a beautiful person, like inside and out.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would love that I just said that he's a beautiful person and on the outside.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but he and I, Paul and I talked to him about a couple different matches, specifically from his era, and one of them was against the Great Kabuki. It was you against the Great Kabuki and your feud with the Great Kabuki in the '80s. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with the Great Kabuki and Gary Hart at that time?
Oh, yeah. Well, at first, I thought Kabuki was really not in good shape. I thought he was kind of short and he did not look like he could go for an hour straight in the ring. He just didn't look it. And so but I knew how popular he was in Japan and that everybody respected him over there. He said, and I told him, I said, Kabuki-san, maybe perhaps another time. And I told his people because he didn't speak English at the time.
Hmm.
And he said, please give a chance. And so I said, yes, okay. Because it was a TV night, but I needed somebody to wrestle, and I didn't know we'd be having a program with him. We wouldn't have done that, but
Right.
we had it, and so he had the karate thing, and I'd heard he was good, but somewhere in the match, I could tell he was tired. I used to do a lot of quick stuff off the bat, and if you're not in shape, you're going to be tired, and then you have to give him away. And so he turned his back on me, and I thought, well, that wasn't very wise, but it was real quick, and so I took a step in, and that foot came out of nowhere and hit me right in the cheekbone there, and
Oof.
just knocked me out. And I got to myself. But you remember when you've been knocked out, you're like, you feel like you're in your bed. You don't know where you're waking up. You think you're in your house. And so I'm looking at all the kids. And I said, "Oh, Dad, I've been knocked out." And so check your toes, your fingers, make sure everything works, and
Mm.
what happened, whatever, deal with it. But he had caught me real good, and I thought I heard in broken English, "Sorry, sorry."
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. That was something else. It turned out his reflexes were just lightning fast, and he was a great guy. He was always business and worked real hard, and I'm a better man for knowing him. He has a Japanese restaurant in Tokyo, right there a while back. He runs the place. He's got pictures all over the place, and next time I go to Tokyo, I'm gonna look him up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pointed out that kick. I think he
Yeah.
caught you twice in that match, actually. Pretty
Oh
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He gave me a
But
turnbuckle, and I came running in the turnbuckle. I was gonna do something fancy and shoot him out, and brought that foot up again, and I ran right into, hit me right under the jaw, and
Oh
snapped
my
my head
God.
back. Snapped my head back in the crowd. The crowd was responding like, "Oh no, he's dead." You know, we like that guy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you wearing boots in this match? Because I know you're wearing white boots in a few matches.
That was about the time I took them off.
Okay, so did you start off? You initially started off with boots, and then
Oh
you just
yeah,
started.
yeah, yeah.
Because I tried wrestling boots one time, patent leather, and I it felt like a dwarf was hugging each leg. I just didn't have much mobility, so I gave them to my friend Michael Shane. I just gave him these new boots because I just didn't want to wear them, and I had to wear wrestling shoes. But you were literally barefoot for most all of your career at a time when the rings were death traps back then. I mean, they compared to the state of the art rings today,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
are still very dangerous, but compared to the rings y'all had back then, I mean, to
yeah.
be barefoot.
I had to walk that whole ring out before the match and to check for bad spots. I'd always do that, and I'd have to
Really?
check the ropes, the turnbuckles, because they're not always tightened right, you know. And you did in
Right.
the old days; you never knew what you were going to get. And remember this too: everybody smoked back then. You
Yeah.
know, it was
Yeah.
smoking all the time. You know.
The whole building smelled and
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
smelled.
Everybody's blown. I remember being a little boy going to the doctor's office, and he smoked. The principal, when you go to school,
Really?
the principal smoked when I was a little boy, and
Yeah. Yeah.
the ladies in the lunchroom that would count out the beans for the boys'
Yes.
lunch, you'd have to go in there every now and then, and it'd be all smoke, you know, from those ladies smoking.
Well, our show focuses on wrestling in the late 70s and the 80s primarily because we're a nostalgic show. That's our favorite era for wrestling. Just like $2 Late Fee, the other show I do is a nostalgic 80s podcast. It focuses on a time that this generation has no clue about. You know, the
No,
fact that
no.
you're on a plane and there's a smoking section on the plane,
Yeah,
but there's a
yeah.
little curtain that's supposed to like keep the smoke out or something. Like,
Yeah, I know, but I remember those days.
right.
And you didn't smell the smoke up in the front. It was in the
No.
back. Somehow it moved back or something, you know.
It was
And remember, you know something else I noticed when you go to restaurants back then,
Yeah.
there'd be the smoking section and the non-smoking.
Right.
But the smoking section, they're all laughing and talking to each other, and the non-smoking section, they're all quiet. You know, I noticed
Totally.
that over and over. Yeah.
I mean, look, I remember going to my uncle's and aunt's house, everyone's smoking pipe, cigarettes, and the kids were all around it. It was wild back then.
Oh God.
Like imagine
Well, I
being in
mean,
that arena, going to wrestling almost a 60-minute match, you know, keeping those lungs nice and fresh, but there's nicotine floating throughout the whole place.
you'd get that on the buses in Japan. Ross and Marshall and I were all on this bus, and sometimes a lot of the older, the veterans, they're gonna smoke. Like, who's gonna tell them not to? And they got the windows up, and you're like, no,
Yeah,
please, please,
yeah.
please, maybe window down, please.
Yeah.
No, no. Like, I'm not telling Fujiwara that, like.
So you were talking about inspecting that ring and checking every part of that ring. So a large portion of our audience are non-wrestling fans that get introduced to this for the first time, and which is a beautiful thing because they go, "Oh, I want to check out these matches you guys are talking about." That transition from the boots to being barefoot, like that was very much unheard of. Like Paul was saying, like you did that the majority of your career. Can you talk a little bit about what was the choice? What was the moment where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I got to go barefoot.
Yeah, I sure can because if you remember, our wrestling was a little different than maybe wrestling today or even back then. We had a quicker pace, and we didn't want to lay in holes. We had commercial TV time is important. We didn't want to be laying in holes in TV time, and we wanted to have make it go. Our matches were out 20, 25 minutes, and that was the longest they were.
Right.
And so when you're working like that, you sweat like crazy. It's hot in Texas, and when you have leather boots on with those cotton socks too, the feet just get so dang heavy. It does make a difference. You want to be able to be quick and sleek and be able to move. And I think that the sweat and those boots and those socks, that weight, because I had some knee surgeries,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
I think it took its toll on me. That's why I shook those boots pretty quick. After
Yeah.
4 years, I had a knee surgery out in Atlanta when I was working WTBS. I wore boots out there, and then after WTBS, after that knee surgery, I really didn't wear boots again. I was afraid that I'd hurt my knee, but you don't ever want to have anything about you weak in the ring, you know.
Right.
And so I taped the other knee so it would look like that's the bad knee. Everybody knew I had a bad knee, but it was just kind of like a science back then. If you had a surgery or injury, then the guy you wrestle was going to work that, you know. And so you don't want to be kind of anything that's bandaged is going to work. And so if something's hurt, you bandage the other one, you know. And
Right.
yeah,
I love that.
I
I
quit
love that.
one.
'Cause today I
Yeah.
teach my students, I teach my students, I'm like, make sure you ask the other person what's hurting on them so that, as a professional, you can learn to work around that or
Yeah.
whatever. Whereas you're saying, no, like, we didn't want them to know because they would attack it. That's so good. I love that. I love that.
Well, you know, I used to tape my knee with the ace bandage too, you know. And I found out that it didn't really help me that much, and I got choked with it a whole lot more than it was on my knee. So I just quit taping my
God.
knee too.
What's the worst foot injury you ever had? Was there ever an injury that made you think, you know what, maybe I should put some shoes back on? Was there a
No,
broken toe? I mean, you
no,
had to.
Paul, I'm telling you, everything I do, I do barefoot, not just in Hawaii, but here in Texas. I mean, I came to Texas after being in Kauai for my 20 years. I came out here and you know, we got cactus and rocks everywhere, rattlers, scorpions, tarantulas, you know, it's Texas. And so I tore my toenail off like the first day, you know, and then we've got these big grass burrs, you know, so I wear these moccasins here, you know, they're
Yeah.
all leather, you know, they don't have any hard sole, so I can feel the ground under me, you know, but so that's what I need. I need to feel that ground. I just do.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Yeah, it's something about it. It really is.
Have you ever tried the Vibrams? They're like foot socks, but they're like shoes. I know they're like they almost look like hiking shoes or water shoes, but each toe is built. They're like toe shoes. You've seen those, right? I'm sure.
Yeah, I have a lot of pairs. I have 2 or 3 pairs of those water shoes with the toes. They're
Nice.
perfect
I
for
would
the
think you
reef.
would be a perfect spokesman for that. Like,
Yeah, I love them. That's the best invention. I love them so much. The only thing bad about them is when you're going from the stream up the mountain, and all those vines get caught between your toes. You know? But you can just You can easily power through it. You can power through it, but I mean, they're grabbing you.
I got to tell you, the first time I ever went to New Mexico, I worked in Taos, New Mexico on the Pueblo there years ago. And I went barefoot for quite a bit, walking on that red dirt, right, for the longest time.
Yeah.
And because I was such a fan of watching you go barefoot all the time.
Really?
And so as an adult, a young adult, I'm going barefoot in New Mexico, and I was like, I want to be connected to the earth like Kevin was connected to that ring.
Yeah, man, there's something to that. I don't know what it is. I just know that my whole life I thought, get these shoes off so I can feel the ground.
Right.
I need it.
Yeah.
And now I hear they're scientifically proven to be good for you. A lot of things like that, you know.
Well, there's energies, man. Like there's energy, like, you feel the energies, right? You
Vibrations,
feel exactly. Animals can sense danger, they can sense love. We're the same way. We can do it not to get a little too, hoo-hoo spiritual, but that's
something very therapeutic about, I mean, I grew up in the hill country, not too far from where you are in Austin. I grew up in Austin, so there's something very therapeutic about walking in your grass in the morning or at any time, but just feeling it in your feet, and in between your toes, and just feeling the earth, or whether it be dirt or mulch, or putting your feet in the water at the pond.
Paul, I hear you, man.
I love it.
We were made from the earth. God made us with clay, I mean, and that's my food, whatever grows from the earth. I could never see myself having Beyond Meat and so many. I don't mean to name any label names.
I'm with you.
It's all good.
Plant-based meat, I couldn't believe it. If a scientist makes it, well, I'm not going to eat it. But if it comes out of the earth, I'll eat it,
Right.
When living in Kauai, what was some of your favorite? Did you live off the land in Kauai, or were
I
there?
sure did. That
Yeah,
was great. Oh, either Ross or Marsh or me would go out and we'd spear, and we'd never buy fish. We had fish all the. We never even froze fish. We had fresh fish all the time. And
really?
Ross and Marsh would both
Oh,
spear, and we spear the reef fish. Or then we also go out in the boat and drop down. It's about 6,000 fathoms down there, and
yeah.
but you can drop down about 30 feet, watch your depth find, and you see a school of tuna coming, and they'll just come by you, and you'll
Wow.
try to stone one dead, hit him in the head. But if you hit his body, I mean, I had a big gun and a real nice float too, but even then, he will pull you right down with him. I
Oh,
mean, they're like one big muscle, but
wow.
man, it's what a good Super Bowl that makes, have all that sashimi on the table.
Yeah.
Oh, you're making me
Yeah.
hungry
Oh my
just thinking
God.
about it
Yeah,
right
I
now.
know. I
So you're
know.
making sushi from scratch. That's awesome. Oh
Hmm.
my
That's
Yeah,
God.
wild.
yeah, yeah.
My wife, her dream is like to have that place in Kauai, and to live because Kauai is like a second home to her. She just loves
Oh,
it there.
good. Yeah. Well, one good thing that we have so many different types of avocado there, not just the
Oh,
ones we have here, those big softball avocados.
yeah,
Wow.
killing
So
me.
Wow.
good. Yeah.
I'm going to make a rough transition because Paul and I also focused on a match with you and Carrie way back when against Gino and Chris Adams. It was a hair versus hair match.
So good.
And that was a wild time. Can you take us back a little bit, talk about that?
God, those shows, as the shows would go on, the rating will get better and better, the TV rating, and we'd look, all these different markets are picking us up all over the world. And so it just makes you want to go out there and do a better job than last week. So we did go wild in that ring. We did, but we wanted guys that were young that go wild too. And boy, we had them, Gino and Chris. I don't want to sell them short at all. I know people love the Michael Hayes and the Freebirds and Buddy and
Yeah.
Terry, but Chris and Gino were just, Gino could talk and Chris could work, and it was just a great combo, just like they were.
Yeah, Mark filled us in a little bit about his relationship with Gino Hernandez back in the day and just how underappreciated. And I think that's something Paul and
Absolutely.
I constantly do on our show is kind of uplift some of these talents that may have been, forgotten a little bit. We just talked about a match between Skip Young and Iceman Parsons versus
Oh
PYT.
man,
Talk about
We
Skip Young.
love them.
I
Yeah.
love both those guys were great. Skip Young though was like a childhood friend. He kind of got us into weightlifting. He's the one that
Really?
did all that. Yeah, his dad was a preacher in Dallas, and they would come to the matches, and he had like 10 kids, and they're all over the place. And Skip was one of those little boys that was our age. He's a little older than we were, but the other
Yeah.
ones were older than us. And Galton was his name, but we just did everything together. Back then, I used to love Motown music, still do, always did love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And there
Great.
was Tower of Power and Gladys Knight and the Pips, and they were all that had been down in Houston, and there were about 20 bands there. It was Marvin Gaye and all the
Oh, nice.
yeah, it was some of the best music.
That's cool.
Well, but I was in high school, and Dad was worried about me going down there and getting all the black people, maybe somebody. But they were so nice. But he sent Skip with me, and I had a girl with me, but Dad worried about it, so he sent Skip with me,
Oh,
and
wow.
we had the best time. Everybody was so nice, and it was like,
Yeah.
what a great day it was.
I
Skip could
love
go in
that.
the ring too. Skip was a
Yeah,
great wrestler.
he could. So could Iceman. Iceman could fight. He was a
Yeah.
tough son of a gun, and so was Skip. But I mean, Iceman, I think he had a little more street in him than Skip did because he was a
Oh yeah.
little
St.
nerdier.
Louis and-
Yeah,
Yeah.
he could fight a little better.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
Was
so
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
that something when y'all were coming up? Sorry, Zach. I'm just
No, no.
thinking like, was that Skip saw that, y'all had this wrestling in your blood, and I mean, would he work out with y'all, early on, and then he just thought like, hey, what, you should join us, like you should come in, you should try it, and he was really talented. I really enjoyed watching his energy and he was
He
just so,
was, he
yeah, he's
was,
great.
but he was a champion inside. He really was, and so I remember we were little kids, and he was older than us, and so the talk would be, Skip's going to be the great world champion, and we're going to help him, because we were little kids. We didn't know we were going to wrestle too.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's wild. When I was at the Kla La La event with you, I was sitting with you, Ross, and Marshall at a table. We were doing a live podcast, and for the people there in the audience, and Ross and Marshall relayed a story about being in Tokyo at the top of a building and basically questioning whether or not they should be doing this.
Yeah.
And then they etched their names on the building in Tokyo.
That's the craziest story, isn't it?
Can you tell this story, please, for the audience?
Yeah. Oh, what a story. This is, I never wanted my sons to wrestle, believe it or not. I limp everywhere I go. I'm always sore. All my colleagues, same way. You're going to be beat up when you get through wrestling. And I thought the boys saw the way I was a high hurdler. I was a high jumper, I jumped like 6'5", 6'6".
Wow.
I love to run, and to jump. And a day comes where you just can't do it, So I'd say, son, you don't want this, but they wanted to be just like I wanted to be. I wanted to be just like my dad. They wanted to be like me too, and so I sent them to Japan, and it's hell over there. They treat those kids like dirt. And I thought, this is what they want. And, you never want to give somebody an easy route. You want them to come out the roughest way because, your body responds to that pain.
Yeah.
But I sent them over there together so they wouldn't be getting beat up alone and anything like that, And, oh, God, they did great over there. But no Americans really do that. But anyway, so I guess evidently they were really wrestling with, am I doing the right thing? Because I told them over and over, this is not for you. It's the wrestling is, it's brutal. It's like slavery, Anyway, but they just kept it up, and I was kind of hoping they'd quit, but I knew they wouldn't. And then they did. They just, it was over, and they came home and they told me that story. They had prayed and said, God, if this isn't where you want us to be, show us. They had that prayer. And so they're working all these shows, and they've got to carry the luggage. They sweep the building out. And then they have to wrestle too. It's just, they treat them like dirt. They hardly eat, it's, I guess the same mindset as a Kung Fu kind of dojo, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're just, we're so tested and so run down from it. I can see that happen in Japan. My brothers and I were always different. I hate to change the subject again, but when you're in the dressing room, you've got like an hour before your match, an hour and a half before your match. And so a lot of guys will read a book but we generally wrestle main event. And so we had a long time in the dressing room. And so we'd roam around. We'd go up to the attic. We'd try to get to the roof, and all that. And sure enough, we found a spot up at the top of this building in Yokohama somewhere. And Dave and I had been riding Von Erich Tour 83, and we'd written that on. We took a lighter and did it in black under the table of our hotel room, and room really? 213 in the Takanawa-Toba Hotel. You can look it up, and I'm sure it's still under there. 20 years ago, maybe.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, so we'd gone up there and found something sharp and scratched our name in the top of that paint, way up where nobody would ever see. No one would go where we went. We scratched it, and I drew a little alligator. It's the only little art I can draw as an alligator, and so I drew my alligator, and so forgot about it. That was 1983 because we were Tour 83, Von Erich concerts, and so Ross and Marsh told me after they got back from the tour that they were in a building at Yokohama, I think, and they went up to the top of the building, and they just had a few hours had an hour before their match, and they were just worried. They knew they were going to have to fight in that ring again, and they looked and they saw Kevin David Von Erich Tour 83, and they couldn't believe that they had gone to the same place we had gone, in that attic of that arena, and were sitting there, and God talked to them right, and here they were. Your uncles that you think are so great were scared little kids just like you too, and this is part of it.
That's
It was
heavy.
beautiful. It really was. It put my heart at peace. I thought, this is what God wants, so I'm with it.
I mean, if you ever needed a sign, that was the sign you
Yeah,
got.
yeah, yeah,
That's mind blowing.
yeah.
Wow.
When they told me about the alligator, I thought, oh man, I think I remember the building too.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. And thank you for sharing that story with us because,
Absolutely.
yeah, man. What a story. I'm glad you remember. You reminded me. I'd love
Beautiful.
people to hear that. That's so cool.
yeah, because it's,
That's
you
such
know,
a
the thing
remarkable
is, like, we
story.
could talk all day about amazing moments that we love in the career, but that moment right there with
Yeah,
Yeah.
your sons who are doing this sport now and so good at it,
yeah.
you know,
40, they were in 40 cities and they go to that one. And, here
of
they've got,
all the play, that's
Volunteers.
so wild. That's
There
so
yeah,
are no
yeah.
wild.
coincidences. There are
Like
no
Twilight Zone.
coincidences.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know.
Wow.
Thank you,
Well,
Tom.
we
Wow.
that's amazing. We don't have too much time left and we want to make sure we don't take advantage of your time, but we have questions from fans if that's okay.
Sure,
Uh
sure. My
yeah.
pleasure.
So Sylvia is a fan of the show. She's a friend of the show. She's all the way in Germany. She wants to know if there was ever a plan for you and Carrie to feud against each other.
Yeah, a lot of promoters brought it up, and Kerry and I would never do that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't either. It's just, if you can't feel it, you can't project it, and
Yeah.
hating Kerry or wanting to hurt Kerry just wasn't in me. We wrestled each other a lot of talks about Abilene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a 20-minute match, but as far as giving Kerry a really stiff shot to the face or the claw or a big knee in the stomach or face, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't, can't see myself doing that to Kerry. And he wouldn't do that to me either. It just wouldn't have worked because we didn't feel it.
Makes total
Yeah.
sense. Makes
Yeah.
total sense.
Yeah.
Scott Kazan asks, or Scott Kazan, sorry. He asks, in the 1980s, the Iron Claw was used over the forehead, but Fritz used it over the abdomen. Was that a common hold back in the 50s and 60s?
Yeah. I think it started out as the abdominal claw, and my dad would grab those abdominal muscles and could grip them really good. But but he also designed. I think he designed the face claw with that, like right in the same time zone, because at first it was the facial claw. I mean, he had
Yeah.
the same. It was the temples, the same what we're doing, but they just called it the face claw. But it's a pressure point hold. The temples, the thumb, and your ring finger, and the others.
I
But
gave myself the claw last night because I had a migraine.
yeah, it'll help. I
I
think it
really
helps.
did.
When I have a headache, I do it too, man. It lets me. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Kabuki even did a similar, like a nerve
Yeah.
pinch to you in the armpit quite a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
And I was like, he's tickling him again. He's
I
tickling.
know. It's almost tickling. He would get me in that. And not this again.
Oh man. So
Your dad was
Paulette,
the
yeah.
first to really do it to the head. I'm sorry, your
No,
dad's
no,
really
no,
the
no.
first to really do it back to the head. That became the Iron Claw. You know what's funny is I even remember a friend of mine in school who he caught a viewing of it and he's like, you got to see this thing. It's crazy. This guy has like a claw and there was blood coming out and it was real. It was real. And I was like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? And sure enough.
It's so easy to tear the skin of your eyebrows. It's so
Yeah.
thin there. It's so easy to nick that and get blood. It's easier the hard way than it is to, I mean, it just opens up. I mean,
Oh.
it happens all the time. God, one time I was in Mena, Arkansas, and Chris and I are in a tag team match. And it's weird that Mena, have you ever been to Mena? What a town.
I haven't.
Everybody
Arkansas?
acts like they know a secret and you don't know anything about it. Like they quit talking when you come in a room, think, what do
Oh,
they
boy.
know here? It was one of those places. So Chris and I, and the guys were wrestling. One of them is the promoter and it's his son. And they haven't wrestled. They just want to wrestle me and Chris, and I think, Chris,
Oh,
what are we going
no.
to do? Well, anyway, they went to shoot us in the rope for a double kick off, kick them both off.
Yeah.
But instead of shooting us in the opposite ropes, dummies showed us into the same rope.
No.
And the ring broke, of course. And
No.
the king game, and I was going to come off and kick the guy, but since the rope slipped, I slipped, and my shin bone caught him right across the head. And his head opened up like it looked like JFK. I mean, that blood
Oh my
was
God.
spreading so fast. I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? And so I tried to put the skin back together with my hand, you know.
Oh.
And the crowd thought I was putting a claw on him. They start booing. They're booing me. Yeah, I got my tire got knifed on my car.
What?
Yeah.
Did you get your payoff from the promoter, father?
Yeah, it was something else. And I
You
never went
split
to
my
town
son
again.
up. Get out of town. Get out of me. You're never welcome back.
What a nice guy he was too. Great kid. I hated that it happened. But,
His one and only match. His one dream match.
Yeah. Oh man.
Were you ever back in that city
No,
after
I
that?
never did go back to Mena after that. It's a weird town. Like, you know, Arkansas is kind of flat, but this is way up on a mountain, and the wind up there is like 50 miles an hour. It's the strangest place I ever went to. Beautiful though. They had a hotel called the Wilhelmina Lodge that was so cool up there, and it was just a different place. You know, I mean, you could see so far from that mountain.
I wonder what it's like, Mena. If there's any Mena residents out there, feel free to.
Yeah. Tell me about that cool hotel on that mountain. That was a strange
Wilhelmina.
place.
That's a clever name. It's a great name for a hotel, Wilhelmina.
Wilhelmina. It's named after that European queen. Is that Sweden or Norway or Finland or Wilhelmina or Denmark? I don't know. One of those countries now.
Oh,
Wilhelmina. Yeah. But that town is something else.
Wow. Got a couple more questions. Paulette asked what it was like working the second Parade of Champions. So not the first Parade of Champions, but the second one.
Oh, yeah. So the first one would be my dad and Dory Funk in that ring. And the second would be Dave and Dave dying and Kerry winning that title. And that was great, you know. But I got to tell you, when you're drawing wrestling crowds, you know, however good your show is, that's how good the crowd comes. It seems like, you know, if you got a great week, it's going to be a great crowd. But if it's people really don't want to see something, it's not going to be that good a crowd. But Dave died, and just the whole city came. You know, it was just an act of love, really. And you should have. When Dave died, it was the line of cars miles long, and the police gave us an escort, and they even shut the highway. They shut Highway 35 down. I've never heard of that. And we just drove right there, and it was like every one of us lost our brother that day. That's what it felt like. It was something else.
Wow.
It was unique. And this is the kind of fickle crowd that, I mean, they're Dallas people. And I got to tell you, Dallas is such a unique place, I think, because we had Michael Jackson came to Texas Stadium and sold it out. That same night, Van Halen came to Reunion Arena and sold it out. Because remember, Michael had this kid from Eddie Van Halen played that solo in that song he had.
Yeah, and
so they went back. Yep. They worked their song. And that same night, we sold out the Mesquite Rodeo Arena. So that tells you about the entertainment dollar in Dallas. Because those are three big venues, you know.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's just a great town. Yeah.
You know, Eddie Van Halen blew up a amp when he was playing that solo and Beat It.
Did he?
Set it on fire. Yep. I actually, my friend owns the studio where he recorded that song. And, you know, and if you think about it, in the beginning of Beat It, you hear that kind of kunk, kunk, kunk on the beginning of the song.
Oh,
that's Michael in the studio, and the maintenance or the cleaning guy is coming in to vacuum or sweep up, and he pounds on the door, kunk, 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 and they left it in. Cool. You know, because they thought it just sounded so good for the song. But anyways, that's a random side note. So,
well, we're kind of, you know, I love Van Halen. I thought Eddie Van Halen was about the coolest guy in the world. But
well, so where did Stranglehold come into play? Like, how did that become your song?
Well, I told you about working that show with Michael Hayes in Atlanta, where we played the music. You know, it was so good, and so we wanted music like that, and So we picked a song for each other that we'd play every time we went to the ring. It'd be the same song. People identify with it, and they could see. Because in wrestling, it's really good if the people can, in any entertainment, if the people's imagination is way better than reality.
Right.
And so when they hear you're coming, they hear your music, then they think about all these great things you did. They get all excited when you're really just a pretty common guy, but it really helped. It made it all good. And with Strangle, I like the fact that it said I had a hole that no one else did, and I have a lot of holes no one does. But the body stranglehold, where I just clamp onto somebody, and so I thought, well, that's stranglehold. That's a body stranglehold. So I love that one.
That's great. That's so cool.
And we had a song for Dave. It was the cowboy song for Thin Lizzy. That's I'm Just a Cowboy. Great tune. Dave had other ideas, though. He said, no, Kev, I want to have country western songs. I said, Dave, no, don't do it. Don't do it.
No, that Thin Lizzy is a very underrated band. There's an album by Thin Lizzy called Live and Dangerous. It's a live album, and Huey Lewis is playing on that. He played in Thin Lizzy for a minute.
No, really?
Yeah. I
love Thin Lizzy too.
Yeah, there's a great picture of Huey Lewis back in the day on tour with Thin Lizzy. He used to sit in with the band and play harmonica or whatever. So
that guy can do anything musical, can he? He is
totally
just something else. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Last question we have is from Brandon. He wants to know if you had any itches to wrestle in WCW or WWF in the early 90s.
I was so busy. I was working every night, really.
Yeah.
Now, there was a time here in Dallas when we went from world-class wrestling to that, what they call it, kind of glow or something, and it went from that. And during that time, I had a lawsuit against Jerry Jarrett and all that, and I didn't want to be any part of that, and I went down to Mexico, in the Caribbean. I worked for Heineken Beer down there, did all sorts of shows and wrestling shows, and then in Mexico, I lived there for a while. I just kind of get a break,
Yeah.
And really, that's where I started falling in love with Costa Rica down there too, because I'd head out and I looked all over Costa Rica for a place to live. I really wanted to live there. That jungle is beautiful, and they have jaguars and ocelots and every bird, parrots and waterfalls everywhere. I found this beautiful place, but it was poisonous snakes everywhere. There were my wife, and you had to take a boat in the ocean to get there and jump out in the surf, and she didn't like any of that, but
Mosquito Coast.
It was on the Zancudo Coast. Yeah, that's what they called it.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh my God. You're going to turn into Harrison Ford.
No, man. Well, the Osa Peninsula is where I went to. The Serpe River comes out in southern Costa Rica and takes you out across the Drake Bay, where the Corcovado Range, and it is so wild there, and that's where I wanted to go, but it's hard to get there, and the kids would have had to learn Spanish, and then there's the banking system there, and if there's a crime, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. Yeah,
it's challenging.
Living in Mexico is not at the top of the list of things I want to do. Just, I have family in Mexico. I am half Mexican, but even then, I don't want to. And I have family in Puerto Vallarta, but I just don't. Unless I'm rich somehow, I don't.
Yeah,
I can protect myself against the federal. It just But
the corruption is bad.
Right.
What created the relationship where y'all started doing shows in Israel?
Yeah.
Because if I'm not mistaken, that's where unfortunately Mike was injured. But it just seems so out of the blue. Like if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be a wrestler, you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm either going to go to Mexico or Japan. I don't really think I need to go to Israel to be seen,
Man, I could tell you stories. I love Israel. I'm a Christian, and my heart is with God. I want to do right. I want him to one day to say, well done, faithful servant. And so Israel was important to me. And I got a letter from a little girl there, and I sent it back. I'm so glad she saw our show. She told me if got it off Middle East television. Our show was broadcast out of Nicosia, Cyprus, and they had us all in Damascus, Syria, and Lebanon, and Beirut, and Israel, and Jordan. And so I sent her a letter back, and she made copies of that letters and sent it all over the country.
Wow.
And the word came out, and it was all just a word of mouth thing.
Wow.
And now to this day, like I was just there last March,
Oh,
and the president invited me to come and to talk to the survivors of the kidnappings.
what?
Oh yeah. And I went and I came over, and they also took me down to Gaza, to Rafah, to where the fighting was going. I mean, so the president, the reason he invited me over is because when I went over in '85, it was a huge thing. And I think Mr. Herzog, his father, was president. And Mr. Herzog wanted to meet me and have pictures, and we took pictures, and he got, the vote for the kids, the youth. But now, 40 years later, his son is president.
That's wild.
And yeah, and I went over, and that was it, man.
That's really wild. I mean, yeah, Bill Mercer, when we had Bill on earlier this year, he talked a little bit about his love of going over to Israel and how it stood out to him, and the letters. He talked about the letters as well. And this is another thing that this generation doesn't understand, that there was this time when you would write a letter and it would take off like wildfire.
Yeah.
And the power and intention of putting your thoughts down on a piece of paper with a pencil or a pen. And it's
They're
just
so big.
It's so big. My son last night, this is just a random side note. My son, who's 10, he comes home last night and he starts writing a story just out of the blue, and it's something that popped in his imagination. He could have been playing video games. He loves to draw too, but he sat down and he decided to write a story. And I just thought, I'm looking over at him while I'm making dinner, and I'm like, that is so special.
Yeah, it is.
It's really cool in 2024 that there's kids out there that still want to do that sort of thing. Anyways, it's a random side note.
No, I'd love to read a story that my son wrote. I'd love to read something they made up with their mind,
Brought tears to my eyes. So as we start to wrap up, Debbie Rebecca, she's a friend and a fan from Australia. She doesn't have any questions for you. She just wants to send love from Australia, from all the wrestling fans there. I think Paul and I can echo that sentiment, that it's such an honor to have you on the show and develop a relationship with you. Your boys are fantastic men. It's just really an honor to talk about wrestling, religion, nature, walking on this earth, food, whatever. I want to go get some sushi now. But sincerely, Kevin, this has really been special. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And you guys are gifted. I love your show and your energy, and I'll be glad to come back anytime.
We would be honored to have you back anytime. We would love this, because I know I certainly have more questions. I want to do a deep dive on G. Willikers. I want to, we'll have to save that for next time, unfortunately. But this is amazing. Yeah, and I would love to talk and see your thoughts on wrestling in Australia.
Right.
So many things I could continuously. There's never enough time, right? But I think that's part of what we were talking about in terms of enjoying each day as the gift that it is, and really understanding the connectivity, like Zak was saying earlier, being around people who make you feel wonderful and make you feel good and have similar mindsets and optimism, and are really always striving to get better, whether it's from a competitive athletic standpoint or just from how we treat other people and ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, Paul, you've got to live fast. It's like every moment is going, and the ones that you love that we're around, it's not going to last forever. So enjoy every minute and don't waste time arguing and fighting, but it's just wasting it. It's going away so quick. Right. Enjoy every second, and I'm glad you guys get that one.
Oh, we get it. We get it, Kevin. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch. Yeah, we'll talk to Marshall, and looking forward to coming back out to the ranch one of these days too.
That'll be good. I'd love that.
Absolutely. And if Ross is around there, please tell him I said hello. I saw Marshall earlier looking like a cop with his mustache.
Yeah. I tell him Von Erichs don't wear beards. So they want to do it.
So heelish. What is he doing? He's such a heel now.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said heels have beards. What's the deal with that?
I know. I need to shave myself.
Maybe you need to tell him that. Yeah.
Really quickly, I'll tell you really quick. I had a conversation with Kristen while when I was out there at the event. She's a lovely person as well. So,
Yeah, I love her so much.
God bless you guys, man. Thank you so much for doing
Hey, God
this.
bless you guys too. Thanks for a great show, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So long.
Thank you so much.